know if it's live or not. Oh, it's going live. Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay, cool. So welcome everyone to this session on digital economies. I am Maria Paula. I work at Golem and at the Department of Decentralization. And with me, I have, yay, Griff. With me, I have James, Griff, and Drew Harding. Drew, your camera is off. Maybe you guys want to intro each other, yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. I'm James Young, CEO of Abridged. We have a consumer product called Collabland. I've been in the Ethereum ecosystem for a few years. What drew me into Ethereum ecosystem, the big rabbit hole, was the DAO, and I've been following Griff ever since. Excited to be here.
Go for it, Griff.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so that's what I'm infamous for. I was the community organizer for Slockit and the DAO back in the day. That's how I kind of jumped into the Ethereum space. These days, I'm like a serial crypto nonprofit founder and really focused on trying to bring some, like, really end the collective psychosis in like our world around the value of nonprofits. That maybe the value that's produced should be rewarded. Just throwing it out there. How about you, Drew?
Yeah, I worked in software for a long time, joined the Ethereum ecosystem and hopped on this wild ride early 2017. I've helped on the product side with Pillar Wallet, growth on Block Native. Obviously got involved in the very beginnings of Metacartel, as many of us here did. And most recently helped found a project called MetaFactory, which is focused on headless brands and digi-physical merch and all sorts of fun stuff in the space.
Seems that we actually have a lot of connections there. You guys were discussing the DAO, and actually Golem, where I have my day job. We're so old that we were supposed to get funded by Daoist, and then when the DAO got hacked, we were like, okay, we need to do something else. So then basically we didn't invent ICOs, but it could be said so. And we raised that infamous amount of crowdfunding money. So and then of course, I was there in the early days, actually on the day zero of the Metacartel.
Yep.
So
that was, I think that's where I first met you, MP.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
In SF maybe, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. That was, we actually formed it like sort of in, I think it was Berlin, but the other day, and shit, I don't have it here near me, but I actually have the early drafts of the logo.
Yeah.
Here in my office.
That's amazing.
I actually brought them from the Full Node office where I had them. So yeah, I still keep them as some kind of memento.
As an NFT.
Yeah. Well, hey.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it would be a little bit unfair because we were so many at that table. So
sure. Yeah.
I'll see. Maybe they want to go halfsies or something like that. Halfsies, so I get more.
We can just donate it to the Metacartel grant DAO.
I actually photographed them and sent them to Peter so that you guys would have them. So yeah, definitely.
Cool.
We can talk about that offline, but let's get the panel started. Oh shit! Sorry. My things just fell. So yeah, I prepared some questions for us to discuss all together. I want this to be a panel more about the good things and bad things about digital economies, and less about the wonderful things that they have been discussing in these sessions, which are, for social good and so on, because I want to not overlap and give them the spotlight. And there's so much to discuss about digital economies. So basically, one of the things that being in Europe, I really believe in, and especially living in Germany, is in cash, because cash is the first anonymity tool that people have. And there's a lot of discussions in Europe, in the US, and everywhere about doing, some kind of digital currency that's and eliminating cash. So how do you guys feel about all of these? Should we strive to eliminate paper cash, or, what are your thoughts? And how does this correlate, of course, with our world of cryptocurrencies?
I guess I can take it. I don't necessarily think that it's on anyone to eliminate anything. I mean, that's the problem, is that there's these giant national organizations that control the currency, and they say whether or not that, I mean, India will get rid of any note larger than 500 rupees, which is like, $10, and they make these unilateral decisions. It should really be a market decision. If people want paper money, we should have paper money, right? It doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
Yeah, totally. What do you guys think?
I'm a big fan of cash. And for the reasons you touched on as well, I think they serve a valid purpose of private value transfer, anonymous value transfer. I anticipate that they will always, or some form of cash that might take more of a local form, depending on how things play out here. But I expect some form of that will continue to exist in most communities. It naturally makes sense to me. It's where we came from before we had fiat, in like coinage, even before that in shells, whatever it might be. So I anticipate that there will always be a demand and a need for that, a use case for it. Obviously, with digital blockchain-based currencies, there's a potential for these to turn pretty dystopian, because everything is tracked, everything you're doing, and if tied to your identity, your real world identity, this has the power to be somewhat dangerous, right? So I think there's a question, and this is obviously one within the industry, around privacy coins and the importance of these things, and if we can essentially create those measures or protections in a digital currency or not. But regardless, I would anticipate that, again, cash of some form will always have a place, and I'm a fan. I will be using it, hopefully. So.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think we need cash. I don't think it will be a zero-sum game. It's a positive-sum game. I just recently read this book, When Money Dies, and it's kind of scary if you can't have cash. It happened in Germany, I think in the 20s, and we need better and more opportunities to be able to trade. And I think in general, trade can create peace. And I think that people will want to engage in markets and economies and basically connect with other people based on whatever their assumptions are. And some people will use crypto, some people will use cash. I think that the more the better overall. I don't think it's a competitive, it could be positive sum.
Yeah, you're right. And, tying back to cryptocurrencies, it would also be helpful for adoption. I wonder how wallets that combine the two would look, and if they would look in any way. So, moving on maybe to, existing digital economies. Just to give you some background, I have been researching into Estonia mainly because I actually had to set up in Estonia. And what I've been noticing from my experience, so Estonia is absolutely digital. Everything, lives on a platform. And what I've been noticing is the insane amount of just like lack of privacy. And another thing that I was really surprised by was actually the fact that, for instance, with my Estonian bank account, I can't, with my card, I can't withdraw cash. I can only buy certain things. If I buy, let's say, I decide to buy, some folders or something for my house because I my card was maxed out or something like that, I would be taxed 60% instead of the 19% that is meant for my digital business. And they dictate what you can buy for your digital business. For example, you can buy a laptop, you can buy a phone, but you can buy a big chunky computer, or you can buy a printer because you're supposed to be digital, or you can't pay for an office. So, but you can pay for a co-working space. And all of these is actually sort of complemented with these amazing, and for me, it's almost like it's surreal, with the fact that they know everything about you. And when one invoice is missing in your sort of your account with the business manager, they're like, hey, I see that in your in your bank account there's 200 euros less. So where's the invoice for that? So and another example that's a little bit equally dystopian, I would say, was the one that we found today with Costanza from my team from Zimbabwe, where they decided to work on a digital currency called EcoCash that works on SMS. And the problem is that the phone the phone service is owned by a single corporation, and it's not decentralized. So as a result, Zimbabwe actually has one of the highest data costs of the world. I'm wondering, and this is my question to you guys after all this background, is all digital economy and societies as dystopian as this looks like?
I think that, I'll jump in. I think that when you talk about money and economy, what you need to peel back, I think, is how people organize. And it comes down to organization. So when you talk about decentralized or digital economies, there is a difference, because in your example, when you, and I would love to learn more about Estonia. I'm not that well educated on it. It sounds like it's centralized and digital is just the means, the rails in which people transact. So when you take a step back, you have to think about, when you think digital or cryptocurrencies, it's not about the form of money, but it's how people are organizing themselves. And if people are, and I think that's really at the root of what crypto is. It's money, it's voting, because these are scarce digital assets and the killer apps for them. But really what it's about is reducing coordination costs. And so it's, I think, hard to, and this is where it's a slippery slope. You talk about digital economies or cryptocurrencies, but I think you need to really think about how things are organized. And if things are decentralized, permissionless, and censorship resistant, then you can prevent these type of dystopian, power monopolies that can form.
Yeah, it's the monopolization that's really the problem. It's the fact that there is one digital economy that controls everything, and they tell you what you can buy and what you can, and honestly, that's how almost all crypto works, right? Like, especially when you get into the complex systems, it's like, oh yeah, you can stake your money here and earn rewards, or you get paid for processing transactions if you run this miner, and they have these rules that are there, but it's okay because it's an opt-in system. The challenge is when you only have one option and it's controlled top down. I think what James is dead on. It's about coordination. It's about coordinating value production. Like, what is an economy? There's whole papers written about how there's no definition for an economy. Like, behavioral economics is so different than Keynesian economics, but we use the same word. And so it's kind of up to us to define what economies are. And I see economies of value coming from when you are coordinating value production. Germany is trying to create a taxation system that is funding public goods, or at least this is the stated purpose, right? And in some ways that's great, but the coordination costs are audacious, right? It's like you have to figure out what you can buy with your credit card. You get out of here. We can do better. And I think it'll be a lot better when there's multiple competing economies within one space. Drew?
Yeah, 100%. Digital is not decentralized, right? And I think that's like a lot of this, and it becomes blurred and in a lot of ways. And if digital is not going to solve, and this goes back to the cash thing too, I think like part of the issue is on paper, not in paper, we have how many trillions of dollars that have been printed. Those are all digital ones and zeros too, right? And the cash, actual minting, creation of cash, the cost and process to do that is nowhere near, if everyone tried to pull out those dollars or whatever euros may be, they couldn't even satisfy it, right? So that's, I think, part of also the reason why cash has been pulled back. But yeah, to pull it back to this, I think we will see different structures and forms taken by different nations, organizations, groups. I think this is why the DAO space and a lot of the people are working on what we are. We've laid this foundation with money Legos, which is critical and super important. And we really needed to solve the monetary side of this first. But I think where we really start to open up the potential and the possibilities of this technology of decentralization is at the social layer and at the organizational layer. And it's now that we're able to start putting those pieces together and start adding those Legos in and really start experimenting with what that means and the form that takes. But that's a very conscious, thoughtful approach. It's not easy. We, as anyone who's played in that space, and I think it's easier to have a power monopoly for everything to be centralized. I think this is one of the reasons that governments and nations and large monolithic organizations do this. It's not necessarily because they're like, I hope that it's just like, oh, we want all the power. Like that's part of it. But I also think it's just ease. I think it's just naturally, this is easier for us to run centralized and to keep all these things. And then they start to realize the power that affords, and they start to kind of creep into those. And that's, we need to set it up so that possibility just isn't even a question or a possibility. So.
Yeah, this is interesting, if I may add. So this goes back to like Coase theorem and the theory of the firm, and how it actually is more optimal for there to be an organization that everyone is working under or for, divide and conquer. And I think we don't have a real great precedent then looking into biology and like nature when it comes to like decentralized coordination at scale. We have the technology to do it, but we don't have the precedent or the right model as humans in order how to do this. And so when you peel back digital economy, as Drew was mentioning, it doesn't mean it's decentralized. So when I think about like the economic effects, I have to always go back to try to reason to first principles. I always go back to how are people organizing and what are the incentives for that organization to happen. And this is where, I think we need experimentation, and it'll be this emergent design that happens, right? So that, you see people talk about, DAOs and whatnot. You always picture flocks of birds. There's no one like real leader, and it's just kind of, or a swarm of like, of insects or something like that.
Velociraptors.
Yeah. I think just like when any technology comes to an existence, right? Where like you had the movie camera and they thought, okay, I'm just gonna put this movie camera and shoot the vaudeville stage. That's all it's gonna be about. And then the camera said, became this multi-camera. You can jump through time, tell a story. And then there was CGI where it's like not actually even real. And so I think we're gonna have this like emergent design when it comes to like decentralized organizations that we don't really comprehend, that will affect economies. So we only can know by doing, and we're gonna make a lot of mistakes. And I think we have to be okay with that and just come into it with a playful mind And this is why it's hard sometimes, though, because you have value. And if all your value is in this organization, it becomes high risk for you. And so you lose that playfulness. So I think you have to set up a scenario where you can keep the playfulness and the emergent design, have it be meaningful, but not so high risk that you're not willing to take a chance or to fail. And I think that is the kind of petri dish that we need to set up in order for us to be able to explore this.
I think there's a lot there to actually dig deeper, and I think you all make really valid points. I'm also thinking that, of course, we do have this, desire to experiment. We're also unafraid to experiment, even if we're experiment actually on the mainnet and so on. And we also have this native sense of desire to restructure, to reorganize, and to coordinate better. And the problem here, from for instance, the examples that I have mentioned, or other examples of fully digital platforms that have arisen, especially in the times of COVID, is that the people building them have no desire to do all of these that you guys have mentioned. And secondly, I do and maybe this is a generalization, but I don't think they're internet native. What we have is that we're internet natives as well, and that is so important. These people are building platforms that look, they always remind me of that Twitter account, Internet of Shit, where everything goes wrong, because they really build as if they're building some kind of Kafkian landscapes, in order for us to end up not coordinating anything at all, and for us to have to reach out to the support email. So yeah, I'm wondering how we can actually intervene or find friendly ways to educate them. And that brings me to actually my third question, which is that more and more people are turning into digital currencies, and of course different kinds of platforms as well. What do we need to work on to support such mass entry? And I know this is spot on for you guys, because Griff does everything. You, James, build tools for coordination, and you're building, one of the coolest wallets out there. So yeah, maybe we can discuss that too.
Yeah, for sure. I'll jump in. I see a lot of what you were just touching on, MP, around essentially this new technology being applied to old mental models, right? Where instead of really realizing the opportunity relies in breaking those and exploring new ones, a lot of let's carve the moat, let's a product approach or whatnot. And we're finding that those types of practices are actually meeting with not only with the resistance, but not having the same success as those that are, hey, let's make composable. Let's lean into collaboration. Especially in our space. And those that are leaning into the collaboration are starting to be wow, this whole network effect thing is bigger than just a buzzword. This is a positive sum opportunity. And if done right, we all are winning and benefiting here. So that I think is something that can only really be discovered by doing. And those who have seen it work are already kind of have shifted the mindset. And so there's these kind of two juxtaposing approaches and old mental models and new mental models kind of playing out on the stage. And the old mental models, I think, are important because they're coming from context of they understand what has worked. They understand consumer behavior. They know what is needed from a distribution standpoint. My concern, or the concern, I think, is that a lot of people enter into decentralized economies, digital currencies through a centralized provider, and they're thinking they're touching digital or decentralized currencies, but they're doing it in a way that really it's the same thing, so we have to be careful with that. To your other, or your next point, yeah, I think that the digital economies, digital currency thing is important. It's inevitable. I think there's some big concerns around. I've actually been having some conversations around the fiat on and off ramps, the fiat gateway side of this space. And one, that's a huge choke point That's a potential huge issue with if nation states really want to try and stop this thing, what they can just do is really cut it off at the fiat on and off ramps, those gateways. And so I think there's a couple of things that are actually happening and being explored by others in the space around also the idea of stable coins, right? These are tied to existing fiat currencies that, stable is a misnomer in my opinion, but now we're seeing things like Rye coming from Reflexor Labs, and this idea of a non-pegged stable coin that's backed only by Ethereum. I think that's a very important money Lego. That's something that really is critical to the future of this stuff. On the fiat gateway side, go back to that, we're seeing, and I've been talking with some people who are really exploring how to make fiat or on and off ramps, rather, of value on and off ramps around precious metals, around gold and silver, so that fiat is not like the only basis for which we get in and out of these digital forms of value. So I think there's definitely some work to substantiate and create those and support this mass entry, as well as the ability to get back out, right? Because we don't want to find ourselves then locked into this dystopian picture that we've kind of been dancing around. So
I like what you said about the value exchange, like gold and silver, but also I love what Gitcoin is doing and making it easy to earn, and be able to come in and just have a wallet and all of a sudden it gets filled. I mean, people are mining too. It's another way to earn without needing to have a fiat on-ramp. You somehow provide a service that the organization needs, or applying to work for a DAO and being paid that way. There's a lot of value in that like deep dive, but we can't expect a mass entry that way. That's the challenge, is that most people aren't going to say, oh yeah, I'm just going to earn it. No, they like, I have this money, I want it to crypto, And the problem is that, well, the monetary system that almost everyone is in is completely centralized. So you're going to have some, unfortunately, we have to, in some ways, like let our idealism go and play with the centralized game that is there and build the bridge, build the bridge to the decentralized world. I saw this awesome documentary called General Magic about like a spin out of Apple that like created the smartphone in '95. And then they sold less than 3,000 copies of it, and it was just a huge failure. They went bankrupt, right? Eventually. And it's like, okay, this is the future. It's like, okay, you're right, but people aren't ready for it. So, take it one step at a time. Here's the vision. Here's where we are now. You can't just like dive in. Like, yes, you have to warm people up to it, and then eventually they'll be there. But we have to be patient, and it's hard to be patient, especially in our industry when everything is moving so fast. But it's moving fast for us. It's not moving fast for the rest of the world. We have to go, people are still figuring out Bitcoin,
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think that, when it came to other technologies, people thought AOL was the internet. And it helped mass adoption. And so I think what's important here as we're building out these systems that are hybrid, it's not that centralization is bad, but a lack of an exit. So what we need to be doing is making sure when we build these systems, there's always an exit, because we know we have that vision of what we're building to. And it's easier corporation-wise to have top-down, one leader, it being completely centralized. And it's okay maybe for even a DAO to start out that way, but it needs the foundation to be able to exit. And I think that is the nuance that's important, so that we can make it look similar. And to Griff's point, we can do it baby step by baby step. And to Drew's point, those of us that see the potential of this network effect will just need to wait. So you want mass adoption to happen to make it easy. But for those that know, we have the responsibility to make sure that there is an exit, so that at scale, we're not reinventing the same systems that we are trying to not recreate. But you can't start out you can't default expert mode, because then you're never going to have mass adoption. So I think it's those that know, those that are living it, that have that responsibility to make sure that, you know, you keep your vision, but you have the user empathy to go to where the users are at now and then guide them along the way.
I love the Taurus wallet, for instance. It's amazing. Google login, boom, like we just soft launched the new Giveth.io, and we default to Taurus wallet. Someone comes in, they want to raise money in crypto, you know, they just log in. It just happens. Oh, Google account. Yeah, I got one of those. You know, click. Oh, you have an address now. Oh, okay. Hey, I want to raise money for this. Boom. You know, you have an entry. You know, and you didn't. And then okay, well, wait a second. Now I have a couple $1,000s on this thing. Like, I should probably figure out MetaMask. And it's about like letting them have those incentives before you bother them. You know, it's like the first thing shouldn't be, hey, save these 24 words. Otherwise, you're screwed. You're like, no, like you don't even have any money yet. You know, like, what do you care?
Meet the user where they are, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, of course, everything starts at the wallet. So I think there's a lot of wallets trying to tackle these problems. Of course, you know, if we see the Taurus wallet and then we see a Google login, I would probably explode. But this is not the case for, you know, non-crypto natives out there. I think that there's also a really good example in what Rainbow is doing. They're doing it open source. You know, they're doing everything right. And then their setup is that simple. You basically, you know, if you have an iPhone, you set it up with your face, and that's it. You know, you forget about it. And yeah, that might hold, you know, probably thousands if you were storing 1 ETH or something like that, but it's still such a good way. You know, they also connect with Apple Pay. Of course, I don't want to buy with Apple Pay because that's tied to my computer, my credit card, but that's the way that normal people enter. They're not, you know, getting sent out from one another crypto. So yeah, I think the wallet conversation should be put more in the front and start making some very, you know, fundamental trade-offs that are there, and that, you know, yeah, I would love to educate people on key management, but the truth is that every single day working with artists, I don't know, Griff, you work with so many different people. I know key management is so overwhelming. They feel ashamed sometimes, and yeah, that's not the way that we're supposed to do it. So yeah, maybe let's talk about this topic actually. How do you see key management? How can we make it better for the future as well?
I think that, you know, what's hard, key management, what we talked about previously with organizations, is that it's not like having to learn something new, it's having to unlearn something old. Because as a user, I'm used to password recovery. So that's my context and that's my assumption. Now with key management, I don't have that luxury, right? Like if I lose my keys, that's it. So it's unlearning the, you know, password recovery. It's unlearning, you know, what does it mean to like not have a job in a corporation? And it's harder sometimes to unlearn something that you've been trained on than it is to learn something brand new. So I think that it's a generational, like demographic thing. It'll be easier for those growing up, like my children, for example, to understand and learn about key management than it is for someone like me that I consider myself internet native, but it's like, I still like forget my password and I get stressed out, you know, having to manage my keys. I'm still that guy that will always, no matter what, do a test transaction first, so I don't mess things up. So, you know, I think it's going to happen slowly and then very quickly.
I'll go. I mean, just 2 nights ago, so I like to be the on-ramp a lot of the times, right? Like if people want to, I'm usually selling, you know, but if people want to sell to me, I'm down. If they want to buy, I'm down, at least for small amounts, just to facilitate things. So yeah, I onboard people all the time. And just 2 nights ago, someone wanted to buy $500 worth of ETH. First off, I'm like, oh man, I don't even know if you want ETH on Ethereum right now. It's so expensive to even send. You know, it's like the gas fees thing. So, okay, let's set up a MetaMask, right? Okay, write down your 24 words. By the way, I should say this lady, she looks like she's 55, but she's 75, right? So, oh man. Okay, so it took some time. Got her to write down her 24 words, and we set it all up, and she's like, okay, I'm in Ecuador. It's hard to get cash and stuff. So it's like, I'll get the cash, you know, tomorrow. And so she comes to me with $700. She's like, okay, yeah, I've got extra. Like, I'm ready, you know? I'm like, okay, so where's your wallet? Yeah, okay, so go get the computer. She forgot her password to MetaMask. I'm like, that's not a big deal. You know, you have your 24 words. So I go grab your 24. She lost her 24 words in a day. In a day, she couldn't find that piece of paper, right? And it's like, okay, so what we're going to do is you're going to call your daughter, and I'm going to send her the ETH because this is not safe anymore. You know, it's a real challenge. I don't think that there's good solutions yet. Honestly, like Taurus Wallet is a good solution for her, you know, but she also is, you know, I'm in this hippie town where everyone's like, screw the man, I don't want a Google account. She said no, you know, so it's like, okay, you want to go decentralized? You can't handle decentralized, okay? I'm sorry. Like,
I always think of with great power comes great responsibility, right? And it's so true in this case because like you're being the power, the responsibility of being your own bank is not to be taken lightly. Sure, you might lose $500, but you buy it in a bear and now you're sitting on 5,000, right? And now it's just like that can get run away from you. Everyone's heard the stories of I had hundreds of Bitcoin on some laptop that I threw away or just didn't think it would be anything and just didn't pay attention, right? So, you know, James, you've been talking about this for ages, and this is something that's resonated and stuck with me since you like first started to like prophesy or say, like, talk about how important this is this idea, and you just touched on it earlier, of like gradual or progressive decentralization, right? And being able to give them that existing path, that mental model they expect, the login through Google or one of those, or maybe even a password recovery or whatever it might be. But there's a path to, and not only is there a path, but they're being educated along the way as to this exists, this is important. You should take control of these things yourself, but we're here. Like, this is like, we can handhold you along the way. And so having that exit, like you said, James, is critically important. And I think where the teams that are going to win are the ones that walk that line very well. And they both have that ease on ramp for the person who doesn't want and shouldn't be troubled with writing down their seed phrase automatically, but they educate and they provide that exit and they show the importance of it as someone's maturing in their portfolio or their trading or their investment, whatever it might be. So
I think it brings to the point that wallets are really a public good in this space.
True.
And it's crazy that they can't get funded.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
hard business model for sure, because it's such a commodity. So
this is why business models are old news, man. We got to get out of that. We don't need business models where we're going. We can create economic models, right? And economic models are almost backwards. It's like, no, and it's kind of audacious to say this, but we're going to print money. We're going to print money and give it to the people who are doing the right things, right? And if you're printing money right and you're actually coordinating value production, then that money will have value, right? If my crypto or MetaMask, you know, they're still doing these business models, and I'm just sick of it. Come on, guys, let's create a token. Like, go for it. Take the dive. You know, like, reward the people who are doing things right. You want people to write down a seed phrase? Give them some of my crypto tokens. You want people to, like, you know, stop using their Google password, Google login, and then move it. Give them some of my crypto tokens, you know, like, and hook them up. And then if you're really providing value, you're giving people an opportunity to support you, almost as an impact investment.
I think there's some ICO fatigue that's coming out that's preventing people from taking that leap, Griff. But I 100% agree, and you're totally right. And I think a lot of we're starting to turn a corner here finally, and we're seeing a lot of new tokens being issued, especially like the personal social community token space, and taking a lean token design approach too, which is great. And I encourage that. And there are some low-hanging fruit opportunities to create utility in collab land, in like gated permission chats, in what we're doing with MetaFactory, like permission merchandising and or merchandise as permission or as a token distribution mechanism and various things like that. So, and then as a community, they can begin to work through what utility or the, based on the goals that community has and what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that is this is something I think a lot of us always saw, and then the ICO happened, and you don't need a token for that. Not everything should have a token. And now we're kind of coming full circle back to these things and realizing, oh no, wait, tokens are really great for incentive alignment. And so we should really lean into this more. So
I'm going to stop you right there. James, do you want to add? Sorry, I wanted to stop the guys just to give you an opportunity to talk because you have to leave, but you started talking, so.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I think that this is absolutely true. I think that crypto is a contact sport. And I would even say that you kind of have to go with where things are at. I've actually just recently had people talk about NFTs as a wallet, because NFTs are hot right now. And an NFT could actually be a multi-sig, right? And so the NFT is this digital art, and they're like, oh wait, I can do something like a charged particles, and that can actually hold value. And that might be even more appealing than just what a wallet is. So I think we even inside need to really be creative and think about what's the touch point in the marketplace. NFTs are super hot, but it's not about price speculation as a collectible, but how can we get mass adoption? And maybe, and this is what people are thinking, we can have an NFT as your wallet, for example, that holds funds. It's a multi-sig so that someone that loses their keys can recover, because you can have some social recovery because you own this NFT with other people that know about crypto or that are more responsible. And so you can like stand on their shoulders. So I think, we can be even more creative and stretch ourselves even. So yeah, that's all I was going to say.
Wow, this is an awesome point. I actually had to research these. You guys gave me so much good material here that I skipped actually 2 of my questions just because this conversation is really a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this panel. I wanted to actually close with 2 key takeaways that I think we can agree. And of course, we diverted the conversation from digital economies and everything. But I think, 2 of the things that we can all agree on is 1, full decentralization is a goal, is not a base layer. And it's also shooting yourselves in the foot with regards to the liveness of your project. And we have seen that happen a lot with projects running into horrible complexity. And then the second one is that hyper-tokenization is actually good, and it's a proponent of digital economy. So I think that's very valid. To close off, do I have another question? Okay, maybe I'll just try, because I really want to know your opinion on these. So with regards to our own digital economy, the one that we're actually shaping, do you guys think that corporate adoption will grow, or MicroStrategy and Tesla will become edge cases? I'm just curious.
Of course, like it just makes sense to have a hedge into crypto. If you're an international corporation, you're playing on Forex all the time, and so there's this idea of systemic risk, and you're stuck in all these fiat currencies, and now there's a new option. You want to diversify your systemic risk. You want to dive into something just in case, right? And I think there's a lot of people worrying about that just in case, right? It's with how much money has been printed across the world, it's a pretty scary place to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will continue to grow. I don't think it's a matter of speculation or investment. I think it's a focus on wealth preservation, to Griff's point. I think that, it's a hedge, and people are starting to see some of the writing on the wall. So that I think the corporate DAO, like investment funds, like all sorts of, it's going to come from all sides. National currency. We've already seen this where a couple African countries are having their national currencies being eaten by the digital alternatives. And they tried to say, no, we're not going to allow these things. And within 40 hour time frame, they had to turn around, and now they're all in buying basically their own national currency is just buying their own or providing for their own entry into this stuff and starting to build their own like holdings of these digital assets because the rails are being replaced under them. And it's a ground up thing happening by those nation states, the citizens of those nation states.
That's a great takeaway. It's a little bit of what I believe on, but I always like to bring the skeptic side and see if, we can find any inconsistencies in the whole narrative. I'm really, really excited for the future. So I guess that's it. Do you guys want to add something, share something?
Well, James, do you want to go first? Do you have any final thoughts?
Oh, I would say that, anyone interested that's listening to this, think about it. You come for the price action, but you stay for the vision, and think of it as a progression. And this is a long game. So you may come thinking that, I want to get some short-term gains or whatever. That kind of is the hook, but it's a long play. And you see those in the industry. Long-term players want to play that long-term game. And I would recommend for those that are looking into digital currency and decentralization is to have that mindset and to focus on that. I have to go, but it's been great. So thank you.
Thanks, James.
Thank you for Collabland.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, it's amazing. Are you really a tokenized community if you don't have Collabland? I would say no. Thanks, man. Well, I guess I have the floor. Final thoughts. I think the next big thing is lots of small things in digital economies. We are always in crypto. We're always going, oh yeah, this is going to be the world computer. This is the global store of value. Like this is going to be the way that so big. And like, okay, so now you're just trying to create another monopoly on this. It's like, I don't know. That's not really the ethos. Like, I see this issue that we have a monopoly on public goods. Specifically governments control the public goods services. They control that in our economic system, the economy, right? There's no value for non-excludable goods. If you want to support the national park, you have to exclude people and say you have to give $15 for a national park pass, right? You want to make money in open source, you create a closed source premium option, and you give 95% of users. These business models don't work for public goods, and we got to get out of that, and we got to start creating economic models. But I hope that we don't get into another monopoly with these giant economies. We have to start creating solutions for micro economies, and that can compete for public services, that can compete for public goods. This is what, in my opinion, the real advancement of digital economy, that we can use innovations like bonding curves to create infinite liquidity, or whether it's through liquidity mining or a normal token bonding curve, where every time you want to buy something, the token is created. Anytime you want to sell, the token is destroyed and collateral is released. So you have a one-sided market. These sorts of innovations are going to be the foundation of the new digital economies that we create. And these economies are going to coordinate value production. We just have to get out of our heads that certain things don't have value when they obviously do. And we have to get out of that mindset that we're stuck in with the economy that only values certain things. Anyway, that's my rant. What do you got, Drew?
I love it. I'm vibing on it. There's obviously a focus on money, and James said it, that speculative 10 times return hook that's bringing most people in. It needed to start with money. That is the core, that is the root. And the tech that empowers all these money Legos are critically important, but I think we're now at that phase, and we now need to really start considering the much harder challenge of human coordination and the social and cultural sides of this that really empower these tools and ensure that we can make this leap to, or rather we don't make this leap to digital without the decentralization aspect, right? And I think a lot of that roots from, how we structure, how we organize, how we educate, and look at those things. It's a super exciting time, and I feel blessed to be a part of all this stuff. And I'm blessed to be amongst so many great minds and visionaries too that are doing so many great things. So I look forward to this future. I do believe that the geeks, the cypherpunks, all of us will stay ahead of the curve as the central bank digital currencies and all these things start to come in, and hopefully we can help steer course and paint a picture that's an alternative, or at least a complement to these old mental models, but with our touch, our flavor. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, I want to just add on your point. We actually, as cyberpunks, or label cyberpunks, or people accompanying the cyberpunks, as I believe myself to be, we have come so far from a simple manifesto to actually, how much 1 trillion Bitcoin was it? So I think that's even faster than any kind of government. We have the brain power, we have everything, and now we have an economy too. So here's to that. Right, guys. So it has been a real pleasure. It made my day too to see some familiar faces. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you in real life soon. Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Us too. Thanks for moderating, MP. Great questions.
Yeah, thanks, MP.
Good to see you, Griff.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Drew.
Cheers, guys.